All right, so you wanted to understand consciousness of unity.
Yeah.
And send us this audio lecture, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Well, buckle up, because it's about achieving true inner unity as the foundation for outward unity, more unified world.
Right.
It's pretty deep stuff, but that's why we're here, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's what we do.
We break it down.
Break it all down.
So the lecture starts by diving right into the core issue,
Yeah.
which is that we're all internally divided.
Okay.
Like we're wearing different masks, playing different roles depending on who we're with.
Right.
The dutiful child,
Uh-huh.
the romantic partner,
Yeah.
the ambitious professional,
Hmm.
and these different egos, as the lecture calls them,
Uh-huh.
aren't always in harmony.
I see.
Right.
Yeah, what's so interesting is how it goes beyond these vague ideas of unity. It actually gives us a framework
Exactly.
for understanding what are the actual challenges, what are the steps involved in actually getting there. Because, I mean, think about it, you know?
Yeah.
This internal division that we all have makes it pretty much impossible
Right.
to have true external unity, like peace between nations, harmony in our communities.
Right.
I mean, even just think about, do you think and feel the same way when you're with
Totally.
your mom,
Yeah, no, absolutely.
your partner, your boss?
Not even a little bit.
You know, probably not.
I know, I'm definitely guilty of that.
And that's a sign.
Yeah.
That's a sign of that
Yeah.
internal fragmentation the lecture's talking about.
Yeah, so, okay,
Yeah.
so we're all these, fragmented selves.
Mhm.
How do we bridge the gap and find that inner unity?
So they point to something called attentive observation
Okay.
as the key.
Okay.
And it's not just meditation. It's about, really cultivating a continuous awareness
Okay.
of our thoughts and emotions
Yeah.
without judging ourselves
Right.
or condemning ourselves.
Okay, so that sounds like a huge challenge,
Uh-huh.
but also incredibly powerful.
It is.
Is this where the concept of the observer comes in?
Yes.
The lecture mentions this idea of kind of stepping back
Uh-huh.
and witnessing our
Yeah.
thoughts and feelings.
Yes, that's exactly it.
Yeah.
So the observer's like the bridge
That's right.
between that fragmented personality
Right.
and the unified soul.
Mm.
They even describe it as like a tiny observer.
Oh, okay.
And it's gradually expanding upwards
Interesting.
to connect with a larger soul above.
Oh, I can picture that.
Yeah.
I can picture that. But honestly, the idea of observing my thoughts all the time
Uh-huh.
is a little daunting.
It's a practice, like,
My mind is like a constant chatterbox.
yeah, like training a muscle, right?
Yeah.
And they even mention that most people
Yeah.
can only hold this state of attentive observation for a few seconds.
Yeah, that's me. I was going to say, I think that's probably most people. But so it's not about like silencing the mind completely.
Well, it gives this fascinating insight.
Okay.
It says that in those gaps between thoughts, those moments of stillness,
Right.
that we can actually start to connect with something
Okay.
beyond like our everyday thinking.
Interesting.
It calls that ideas.
Oh, okay. So it's not just about silencing it. It's about becoming aware of the space
Yeah,
between thoughts.
exactly.
Like, yeah.
And here's where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
They distinguish between thoughts and ideas.
Okay.
Thoughts, they say, are like a light bulb's illumination,
Okay.
bright
Yeah.
but fleeting.
Right. Yeah.
Ideas are the filament,
Okay,
the
yeah.
original source of
I
that
know.
light.
Okay. I like that analogy.
Yeah.
It makes me think of those moments when I'm stuck on a problem and then out of nowhere, a solution appears.
Exactly.
It's like a flash of insight.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And they use a great example. They talk about Michelangelo and the Sistine Chapel.
Oh, wow.
Can you imagine the
Yeah.
genius behind that?
Unbelievable.
He didn't meticulously plan every brush stroke.
Right.
He received a flash of inspiration, a
Right.
grand idea
Wow.
in an instant.
Wow.
And then he spent years driven by thought,
Right.
bringing that idea to life.
That's a great example.
Yeah.
It makes you realize how powerful accessing that realm beyond our everyday thinking can be. It's like tapping into a wellspring of
Yeah.
creativity and wisdom.
Exactly.
And is this where they connect ideas to the soul?
You got it.
Okay.
So the lecture describes the soul
Okay.
as this repository of synthesized experiences, even from past lives.
Okay.
Now, that's something that you can choose to believe or not, obviously.
Sure.
But the key takeaway, I think, is the soul operates with intuition,
Okay.
which is not bound by logic or reason.
Okay.
It's about those gut feelings, those moments of knowing
Yeah.
that defy explanation.
So if we connect this to the listener's life,
Yes.
have you ever had that strong feeling about something? A sense of knowing that you couldn't explain?
Yes.
Like,
That's your soul trying to guide you,
really?
the lecture would say.
Okay.
That's your intuition speaking.
This is already giving me a lot to think about.
Yeah, it's fascinating stuff.
It makes me wonder if those times when I ignored my gut feeling
Yeah.
was actually me turning away from my soul's guidance.
It's possible.
But before we get too ahead of ourselves, let's unpack this idea of the soul a bit more.
Okay.
How does the lecture define it?
Yeah. So we left off talking about the soul and its connection to intuition.
Right.
This idea of a deeper self that operates beyond logic and reason.
Yeah, it is fascinating, but I got to admit, the idea of a soul,
Yeah.
especially one carrying memories from past lives,
Right.
feels a bit out there for me. You
Yeah.
know, I'm more of a show me the evidence kind of person.
Sure, and the lecture acknowledges that not everyone resonates with the idea of past lives.
Right.
However, it emphasizes that the soul,
Yeah.
regardless of its origins, is this reservoir of experiences that informs our intuition.
Way.
Think of it as like a vast library of wisdom accumulated over time,
I see.
accessible through those gut feelings we often ignore.
Okay, I can get on board with that. But how do we actually tap into that wisdom?
Right.
How do we learn to listen to those intuitive whispers?
So that's where...
I feel like I'm usually drowning in a sea of thoughts.
Right. Well, that's where the practice of attentive observation comes in.
Okay.
The lecture suggests that by cultivating this observer within, we become more attuned to the subtle voice of our intuition.
Okay.
It's like tuning a radio. When we eliminate the static, the signal becomes clearer.
So it's not about like forcing our minds to be quiet.
Right.
But rather...
It's a process of allowing rather than forcing.
Okay.
And they even offer some practical techniques to help us, develop this skill. One of the simplest yet most powerful is becoming aware of the space between thoughts.
Right.
Remember that visual of the lake?
Yeah.
The goal is to quiet the turbulent waters of the mind so that the lake can reflect the deeper truths beyond it.
Right, but how do we quiet those turbulent waters? My to-do list, all those random worries.
Just start small.
They always seem to be swirling around in my head.
Just, begin by simply noticing your breath.
Yeah, I've tried that before.
Okay.
With those meditation apps.
Yeah.
But my mind always races with thoughts. It's like a never-ending commentary track.
That's perfectly normal.
Okay.
The key is not to get frustrated when those thoughts intrude.
Okay.
Just gently acknowledge them without judgment and redirect your attention back to your breath.
It's like those meditation apps.
Yay.
They tell you to imagine your thoughts as clouds drifting by.
Exactly.
You don't engage.
You just let them pass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's about developing like a detached awareness
Precisely.
of our mental activity.
Yeah. The more you practice this, the more you'll start to notice those gaps, those moments of stillness between thoughts.
Okay.
And as we become comfortable with those gaps, we can start to explore what arises in that space.
I see.
And they call this building a bridge, the antakarana between our personality and our soul.
Yeah, I remember the lecture mentioned this, antakarana, how it's essential for achieving consciousness of unity.
It is.
It sounds like a pretty big deal.
It is. Think of it as a bridge. That allows the wisdom and energy of the soul to flow into our everyday lives. As we cultivate this connection, we start to experience the world differently.
Oh, wow.
Our perceptions shift. We become more attuned to the interconnectedness of all things.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
But the lecture also talks about the challenge of maintaining this state of observation continuously.
Right.
It seems like one thing to cultivate a sense of peace during meditation.
Yeah.
But quite another to hold on to that awareness as we navigate, the ups and downs of daily life.
Yeah, that's a great point.
I mean, I tried practicing this 2-4-7 observation thing, and let's just say road rage and inner peace.
Yeah.
Don't exactly go hand in hand.
So they acknowledge that continuous observation
Yeah.
is a challenging practice,
Okay.
but also one with immense rewards. It's not about achieving some perfect state of serenity.
Okay.
It's about becoming more aware of our thoughts and reactions throughout the day, what we're doing.
So it's about bringing that mindfulness
Precisely.
into every aspect of our lives.
Like we're developing a new operating system for our minds.
Interesting.
And one that's rooted in awareness and choice. Rather than automatic reactions.
Right.
And this is where the concept of the initiate comes in.
Okay. Oh, right. The initiate. This is where they get into those 4 stages of spiritual growth.
Right.
I have to admit, this part felt a bit overwhelming to me.
Sure.
What exactly are these initiations?
So they describe
How do they relate to this idea of continuous observation?
the initiate as someone who has committed to this path of inner transformation.
Right.
Someone who's actively cultivating their observer and strengthening their connection to their soul.
Okay.
And these 4 initiations represent
Yeah.
different stages of growth along this path.
So it's not like
You graduate from one stage.
it's an ongoing process of evolution.
Okay.
And each initiation presents its own unique challenges and rewards.
Yeah.
The first initiation, for example, is about recognizing the limitations of the ego. That part of us that's driven by fear, desire, and the need for control.
Right.
It's about starting to question our habitual patterns of thinking and behaving.
Yeah, I can see how that ties into the idea of continuous observation.
Yeah.
By becoming more aware of our thoughts and emotions, we start to see the ego's influence more clearly.
Precisely. The second initiation builds on this awareness.
Okay.
By challenging us to confront and transcend those egoic patterns. It's about moving beyond the limitations of our conditioned selves and tapping into a deeper source of wisdom and power.
So if the first initiation is about recognizing the ego,
you could say the second is about taming it.
It's about shifting our identification from the limited ego to the boundless soul.
Okay.
And this shift in awareness has profound implications for how we experience ourselves and the world around us.
This is all starting to make sense.
Good.
But I have to admit, it also feels a bit overwhelming.
Sure.
Like, how do we even begin to tackle these initiations?
Oh, remember.
They sound pretty intense.
It's a journey, not a race. It's about taking small steps day by day to cultivate greater awareness and align our lives with the wisdom of our soul.
Okay.
And the beauty is you're not alone on this path.
That's reassuring.
Countless individuals throughout history have walked this road before us, and their experiences offer valuable guidance and inspiration.
So if we're ready to embark on this journey, what are some practical steps we can take to cultivate these initiations?
So,
the lecture mentions something about a Christ consciousness developing within.
Yeah.
What does that even mean?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And one that often causes confusion.
Yeah.
So they use this term Christ consciousness, not in a religious sense, but rather to describe a state of awareness characterized by unconditional love, compassion, and unity. It's about embodying the qualities associated with the figure of Christ, regardless of one's religious beliefs.
So it's not about becoming a Christian.
It's about cultivating those qualities of love and compassion within ourselves.
That makes more sense.
And they suggest that this Christ consciousness emerges naturally as we progress through the initiations.
Oh, okay.
It's like a seed that's planted within us. And as we nourish it with self-awareness, compassion, and right action, it begins to blossom.
That's a beautiful analogy.
Yeah.
It makes me wonder if those moments in my life when I felt a surge of love and connection.
It's certainly possible.
Were glimpses of this Christ consciousness emerging.
And as we cultivate this consciousness, we become more aligned with our true nature, our soul's purpose.
I see.
We start to see ourselves and others through the lens of unity and compassion.
This is all so fascinating.
It is.
But I know there's more to this journey. What about the third and fourth initiations?
Right.
And how does all this inner work connect to creating a more unified world?
Yeah.
So we've been on quite a journey exploring these initiations.
It's a journey.
They paint a fascinating picture of personal transformation.
It is fascinating stuff.
But I'm still curious. how all of this inner work translates into creating a more unified world.
Right.
Is it really as simple as inner peace equals world peace?
Well, so it's more than just a simple equation, but it does suggest a powerful connection between our inner state and our outer reality.
Yeah.
They use the analogy of a tapestry. Yeah. You know, we're all interconnected threads. Our thoughts, emotions, actions create ripples that affect the whole fabric.
That makes sense, but it also feels like a lot of pressure. Like if my personal struggles contribute to the world's problems, where do I even begin?
Yeah.
It's easy to feel overwhelmed.
Yeah, and that's where the idea of personal responsibility comes in. The lecture isn't about blaming ourselves for the state of the world.
Right.
It's about recognizing that we each have a role to play in creating a more unified reality. And that begins with taking ownership of our own inner state.
So instead of trying to fix the world out there, the focus is on doing the inner work.
Doing the work.
To become more whole and integrated ourselves.
That's a great way to put it. Think of it like the oxygen mask on an airplane.
Okay, yeah.
You have to put on your own mask first before you can help others.
Right, yeah, that's true.
So they suggest that as we cultivate inner unity, we naturally become beacons of peace, compassion, understanding, influencing the world around us simply by being who we truly are.
That's the powerful image.
Yeah.
Becoming a source of light rather than trying to force change on others.
Absolutely.
Does this tie into the idea of the Christ consciousness?
It does.
We were talking about earlier.
So they suggest as we cultivate this Christ consciousness, this state of unconditional love and unity, we start to embody the very qualities we wish to see in the world. It's not about imposing our beliefs on others, but rather radiating a different frequency, a more harmonious vibration that naturally inspires and uplifts those around us.
Okay, so it's like that ripple effect.
Exactly.
A single drop of water can create waves that extend outward, influencing the entire pond.
They can.
So even small acts of kindness and compassion can have a significant impact.
Exactly.
Wow. Okay.
They emphasize that as more individuals embark on this journey of inner transformation.
Yeah.
The collective consciousness begins to shift.
I see.
We create a more harmonious resonance, a more unified field of awareness that paves the way for a more peaceful, interconnected world.
This all sounds incredibly hopeful.
It is hopeful.
But I have to be honest, looking at the state of the world right now, it's hard to imagine such a dramatic shift. Is planetary independence.
So they acknowledge
the lecture calls it
the challenges we face as a global community.
Right.
But they also highlight the incredible potential that lies within each of us to contribute to a more unified future. Remember, these initiations aren't just about personal growth. They're about aligning ourselves with a larger evolutionary impulse, a movement towards greater unity and interconnectedness.
That's a really encouraging thought.
It is encouraging.
It makes me think of all the social movements throughout history that started with a small group of individuals who dared to envision a different future.
Exactly.
Maybe this movement toward consciousness of unity is part of that larger arc of human evolution.
But that's a fascinating connection. And they remind us we're not alone in this endeavor. Countless individuals throughout history have walked this path. Their wisdom and experiences serve as a guide for us today.
Speaking of guidance, the lecture emphasizes the role of love in achieving this unity.
It does.
But it challenges our conventional understanding of love.
It does. They distinguish between conditional love, which is often based on attachment, possessiveness, or the need to control, and unconditional love, which is rooted in acceptance, compassion, a deep respect for the other's individuality.
So it's not about clinging to others or trying to change them, but rather recognizing their inherent worth and allowing them to be fully themselves.
Unconditional love, as described in the lecture, is about celebrating our differences while recognizing our fundamental interconnectedness.
I see.
It's about seeing the divine spark in every being, even those we perceive as different or even as enemies.
That's a powerful idea.
It is.
It makes me wonder if much of the conflict we see in the world stems from a lack of...
They would likely agree.
This unconditional love.
Yeah.
This ability to embrace our shared humanity despite our differences.
It suggests that this kind of love is the key to dissolving the barriers we've erected between ourselves. The barriers of race, religion, nationality, ideology.
It's the foundation for building a world.
It is.
Based on unity.
Yes.
Cooperation. Mutual understanding.
Exactly.
That's an inspiring vision.
It is.
And I have to admit, after diving deep into this lecture, I feel a renewed sense of hope.
That's great.
A sense that a more unified world isn't just a utopian dream, but a real possibility.
It's the heart of the message.
If we're willing to do the inner work.
They convey, it's a call to action, an invitation to become conscious participants in creating a more harmonious and compassionate world.
Okay, so it all starts with that.
And it all starts.
A simple but profound practice
with that
of attentive observation.
But profound practice of attentive observation. Quieting the mind, noticing our thoughts and emotions without judgment, listening to the whispers of our intuition.
It's a reminder that each step we take toward inner unity.
And if there's one key takeaway,
however small,
from this whole deep dive, it's this: you are not alone on this journey.
That's powerful.
We're all interconnected. Each act of kindness, compassion, understanding, creates ripples of positive change.
So to our listener,
that extend far beyond ourselves.
And to all the deep divers out there,
absolutely.
Keep exploring.
Keep diving deep.
Keep questioning.
Keep seeking those connections.
Keep connecting.
That bind us all together.
The journey toward unity begins within each of us.
It does.
And who knows? Maybe by cultivating our own inner harmony.
You never know.
We can contribute to a future where planetary independence
it's possible.
isn't just a vision, but a lived reality.
Absolutely.